بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وبه نستعين وهو خير ناصر ومعين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعليه الطاهرين ولعنة الدائم على أعدائهم أجمعين أمين علان إلى قيام يوم الدين. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Spiritual Perspectives, a program that looks into the essential reality of Islam. A program that wants to provide a deeper understanding of Islam, particularly geared towards our youth. Our lines are indeed open. Give us a call whenever you have in the middle of the program concerning the discussion that we have tonight or our previous discussions as well. For those who've been following us from day one, what we are trying to do or provide here in this program is to our youth, is to provide an answer to the challenges that Muslims face in the West particularly, and what Islam faces here. Most of the time the issue lies with lack of understanding what Islam is, and the lack of deeper understanding rather, which is very much required today. In the previous time, it was quite easier for many to provide an answer on with a shallow understanding, with just outward understanding of Islam. However, today, as we have advanced so much in terms of the materiality, in terms of the substance, which we tend to call it as progress and development, which we tend to call ourselves as the advanced society and community, as we are in the postmodern period. So therefore it really requires a deeper understanding of Islam. Today Islam faces new challenges. Our youth in universities, in school and college, like we said earlier, by the time they leave their high school, they are Darwinist. They totally believe in the theory of Darwin. They believe in the Big Bang, and they are all set and ready. Their hearts are ready for the university professors and teachers and the colleges to be their role models, to be their guide. So basically, by the time they finish high school, the bed is provided, the ground is fertile and provided for the universities to influence. And obviously what we have in universities is a chaos in itself, an anarchy, an anarchy in itself. So therefore, unfortunately, because of the lack of understanding that exists amongst the youth when they go to the universities in regards to, and the challenges that they face, they are bewildered, they are shocked, they are surprised, and at the same time they are shy to disclose and to speak about these things, as they are not provided with proper answers that will satisfy them. Issues that we face, for example, from economics, from science, from social, political, so on and so forth. For example, gay marriages, premarital sex, drugs, then at the same time questions in regards to existence of God, questions in regards to the authenticity of the Quran, the family structure, the tarbiyat, which means the training of the family, many issues that they face. So what we do here is to look into Islamic principles, Islamic values, Islam as a religion, from a spiritual point of view. That's why the program is known as Spiritual Perspectives. It provides different perspectives or spiritual perspectives in regards to different realities or phenomena that exist. Like we earlier started in the very beginning, we talked about Islam and the meaning of Islam. Then we talked about what Islam and universe and man means. And then last week we looked at the Sharia, and we clearly pointed out to Sharia is nothing but the embodiment of the very will of God. And then we looked into different categories within the Sharia. You have the the mu'amalat, which are the transactions, and the ibadat, the laws that contains within it, and the different facets that exist within these laws. Tonight we want to extend our discussion in regards to the Islamic spirituality and thought. Islam, if you look at it, is not only a religion, but also is the basis of a very vast civilization, which is really spreading from Atlantic to Pacific. No religion we have seen on the face of earth that have really advanced in the fashion, in the way that Islam have. It could be well defined as a civilization, because within a civilization you would find how scientific advancement takes place, social advancement takes place, a formation of a community, of a government, of economics, of art, architecture. All of these things come within a civilization. You will not find much being provided within the our fellow, for example, faiths that could be considered as a Christian civilization or as a Jewish civilization as such. So therefore, when we are talking about Islam, we talk about it's a very vast civilization which have Arabs, which have the Persians, which have the Indo-Pakistanis, the Malays, the Malaysians, the Chinese, the Turks, the blacks. You have all sort of different tribes and different colors within the Islamic civilization. So it's not just a ritualistic religion that is practiced, but it is also a civilization, and it provides us with science, with philosophy, with theology. It has so many different thoughts, so many schools of law came into existence because of Islam, because of the nature of Islam that it contains within it. Many mystical sort of ideas that have developed and that have provided a community with a sense of belonging, and not only just belonging, but with a sense of contentment, tranquility, peace, and it still goes on. It's something that it hasn't stopped, but it still carries on. And one of the challenges of today is the lack of spirituality. Many of the converts or reverts that we have today in the West, they talk about lack of spirituality. This is one of the major reality of the West, as they have gone so far thinking that this is what it means to be advanced, this is what it means to be this is what it means, progress and development, while leaving their humanity. They have lost their humanity, they have lost their sense of spirituality. So what is of value? The sense of spirituality and humanity, that insaniyat is of more value, or this advancement of technology, the advancement of their sciences, for instance, landing on the moon, for example. Yes, that is valuable, We are not critical of that. But the question would be that is it better that man colonizes moon, or is it really better that man saves the planet Earth? The amount of research, the amount of energy, the amount of finances that is funded, that is loaded towards the advancement or towards the mission to Mars or towards the travel in the space, for example, right? The amount of energy that is spent there, the finances, is that worth, or is it really worth that we make a better human being, better society, peace, getting rid of poverty, having no poor walking on this earth? So obviously there's a conflict, not just a conflict, but there's a lack of priority. We thought that to be advanced means that we should land on the moon, rather than to be advanced means that you have a community that is caring. You have a community that will do something in order to get rid of ignorance or lack of education. That's what there is an imbalance in the society today. Now, where does this imbalance come about? What is the source of this imbalance? The source of this imbalance is the lack of spirituality. We are quite advanced, and our leadership or our political leadership in the West, for example, they would like to do something good, but when they do something good, that itself becomes a source of corruption, a source of fitna, a source of deterioration. Democracy is good, but look what democracy is bringing to the Middle East. You see, so now democracy is good, but with what intention democracy is good? Democracy is good if it supports our interest, then only democracy is good. When we talk about democracy, when we look at the rights of one of the things in democracy is voting. A person should have the right to vote. When we look at those who are the runners, the post runners of this institution of democracy, when we look at their history, when they themselves are talking about democracy, we find that when did women got the right to vote in the West? It is very recent. When was it the blacks were allowed to vote in the West, in America? It's very recent. It's about 30 years or so, for example. But when we talk about corruption and democracy in Africa or in any of the Middle Eastern countries, we don't look at our own sort of countries or how we were in the past. So therefore, there's a lack of understanding in regards to progress, in regards to development, in regards to advancement. We think to be advanced is that we should have a mission to Mars. That's what advance means. We are not against that. That is something great. The very mission to Mars is indebted to the Muslim scientists, to those Arab scientists who were the first one who thought of this concept of flying. It was not Wright brothers. If you go Google CNN and / Muslim invention, in 2010 there was an article published on CNN which talks about what the contribution of Muslim scientists to the modern world. The contribution of Muslim scientists to the modern world. Google it. There was an article on CNN. So the very mission to Mars that we have today, it is indebted to those Muslims who thought of this phenomena of flying, and then gradually it was developed. Obviously, progress, science really means that it grows and develops, it carries on. Plato and Aristotle, when they talked about philosophy, the Platonic philosophy, the Aristotelian philosophy, it has been developed from there indeed, and we are indebted to, when it comes to the field of philosophy, to the prehistoric philosophers, to those philosophers. Now, we are talking about there is an imbalance and misunderstanding of the phenomena of development, of advancement. We think that that's what advance really mean, but the true advancement within the Islamic understanding means that you serve humanity, that you allow not a single person to sleep at night empty stomach, that there be no poor person on this earth, that there be no country without education. That's what advancement means from the Islamic point of view, from the true essential Islamic point of view. So due to the lack of spirituality that exists, we are reaching the dead end, and that is why you tend to see many of people being pulled towards spirituality. And as even the spiritual man today, the quote-unquote spiritual man, for example, have misunderstood what spirituality means, they themselves have become corrupt. That is why you tend to find these cults, these spiritual sort of movements that tend to attract a lot of Westerners to begin with, but it ends up being a cult, being corruption, being something that they themselves are trying to, materialize them. They themselves are trying to gain materially. Because there is a lack of spirituality, many of the Westerners, or many of those who lack this spirituality regardless of West stories, they fall into this trap. But when we look at, in Islam, a true spirituality, once again, goes back to that deeper understanding of what Islam means, where we started. Now, if we want to get into more specifics of spirituality within Islam, it is beautifully divided in one of the hadiths of the Prophet, which talks about Islam, which talks about Iman, and which talks about Ihsan. Ihsan is that virtue. Ihsan is that spiritual path. Islam is that outward shell. Then the inner layer of that Islam is that Iman, which is the faith. Many a times you would find many hadiths in the Quran which talks about that, "O Prophet, tell them you have brought Islam, but you haven't brought Iman." Iman really requires the faith to really enter the heart. And Islam is something that you have pronounced it, something that you have accepted it in a very outward form. You said, yes, it makes sense, let's accept that. But eventually this acceptance of yours enters your heart. Your heart is ready to really practice what Islam is preaching and what Islam is talking about. And then when you start to practice and you see the tranquility, the peace, and the relationship of your true nature with this action, when they come in line together, when it becomes a perfect sort of a vertical sort of reality, Islam, Iman and Ihsan, when it lines up, then that's the path, the inner path, which is known as Ihsan. We'll try to look at these three phenomena in more detail right after this short break. Stay with us.